Welcome to the Web Hosting Cat Podcast, brought to you by webhostingcat.com. Here's your host, Michael James.
Welcome to the program, everyone. On this edition of the Web Hosting Cat Podcast, we take a look at the best hosting for Drupal websites. We'll also compare traditional web hosting to the newer line of website creation companies, and we'll chat with the Chief Operating Officer for SiteGround Hosting, Reneta Tsankova. Well, with the DrupalCon conference recently taking place here in Los Angeles, I thought it would be a good time to discuss what Drupal website owners should look for with web hosting. We recently posted an article discussing the best web hosting for Drupal on our site, webhostingcat.com. Because Drupal does have some similarities to other content management systems like WordPress and Joomla, when we talk about what type of web hosting is best for Drupal, there are a number of common denominators with hosting that is beneficial to those other CMSs. So that's a great starting point. For example, you certainly want to look for the best quality state-of-the-art hardware that's specially tailored for handling content management systems like Drupal and WordPress. And since PHP and MySQL databases play a big role in these content management systems, you definitely want to make sure that your hosting plan includes the latest stable and compatible versions for your release of CMS. And since speed and page loading times are always critical with content management systems such as Drupal and WordPress, you want to look for a web host with multiple data centers or a content delivery network. Now, in addition to those features we just mentioned, if you plan on using Drupal as your website platform, you also want to look for these Drupal-specific features: easy installation, pre-installation and configuration, SSH access for Drush, and expert Drupal support. When we talk about recommendations for Drupal web hosting, I need to point out here that we're referring to hosting for small or medium-sized businesses or for personal websites. For large enterprise solutions where you need a full website management platform for things like team development and multiple websites, you'd probably want to look at a solution like Pantheon or Acquia, which are great, though they cost a lot of money. For our purposes here, we'll look at pure hosting solutions, again for non-enterprise situations. So here are 3 web hosting companies we think are great for Drupal sites. First off, there's SiteGround. Now, SiteGround is better known for their WordPress and Joomla hosting plans, but they also offer excellent hosting for Drupal sites. Along with easy Drupal installation, you also get Drush pre-installed. We also really like that you get Drupal version control with Git integration, as well as the Cloudflare content delivery network. Also on our list is Arvixe, another member of the Drupal community. At Arvixe, they have an optimized Drupal environment with international data centers. And best of all, with Arvixe, you can get Drupal pre-installed and pre-configured. And finally, rounding out our list of recommended Drupal web hosting is a company that continually rates at the top of many best hosting lists. And that's InMotion Hosting. Similar to SiteGround, with InMotion Hosting, you get easy one-click Drupal installation along with cPanel and SSH access. And InMotion also includes solid-state drives for faster hosting as well as their max speed zone technology. By the way, all 3 of these hosting companies were part of the community at DrupalCon Los Angeles. So again, if you're looking for Drupal hosting, take a look at SiteGround, Arvixe, and InMotion. And now here's Steph with a look at how the new wave of website creation companies compares with traditional hosting. Steph?
Thank you, Michael. If you're planning on creating your first website for your business or personal use, you may be wondering if you should buy a traditional web hosting plan or go with a website creation package from companies like Squarespace and Wix.com. Since there are advantages to each method, here are some things to keep in mind when deciding which is right for you. Wix.com uses templates, and Squarespace utilizes cover pages to produce websites for their customers. Their goal is to simplify and accelerate the process of creating your website. And for those people with no technical experience at all, these are valid options. However, even with only a little technical knowledge, going the traditional route of getting web hosting and creating a website on your own might still be the better way to go, especially if you're looking for the more cost-effective solution. Going with a company like Wix.com or Squarespace does have certain advantages. It will probably take less time to get your website up and running. Also, they'll take care of the heavy lifting, so you won't need to deal with setting up any applications or deal with a lot of maintenance tasks. But using a conventional web hosting company has just as many, if not more, advantages. For instance, when you purchase your own web hosting plan, you'll have much more flexibility in how you can design and develop your site. You'll have access to many different applications, so if one doesn't quite work out, you can easily switch to something else. That also brings up another key point: more control. With your own web hosting plan, you won't be locked into a certain platform or design style. And, despite what you might think, going with a traditional web host will cost you less in the long run. So, remember, while website companies like Squarespace and Wix.com are fine choices for newbies, many traditional hosting companies are now making things even easier for customers by pre-installing applications like WordPress and Joomla. Even if you're not an expert, as long as you have some computer experience, you might find using a conventional web host is much easier than you thought. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Steph. Now, it's time to bring on our special guest. If you've ever wondered what it's like to be the COO of a major web hosting company, our guest will certainly be able to tell you. We'll ask her about that, as well as what's going on at SiteGround Hosting these days. My special guest is the Chief Operating Officer at SiteGround, Reneta Tsankova. I'm very pleased to have as my guest today the Chief Operating Officer of SiteGround, Reneta Tsankova, and she's going to talk about a little bit about SiteGround and what goes on there. Reneta, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's start off with, I'm just curious, as Chief Operating Officer of SiteGround, what's your typical day like? What kind of stuff do you work on?
Well, I work on all projects that are focused on our product development, on the expansion of our services and their improvement. I'm also dedicating a lot of my time on our international expansion. Like we already actually have an office in Spain, and we are launching operations there very shortly. So that takes a lot of work, and obviously we want to be ready.
So a lot of expansion going on there.
Yes, we've been growing very fast for the last 2 years, and we're constantly hiring great people. This also takes a lot of work because we are very famous for hiring quality people, training them to be even better. So this is a lot of work from all the managers, including myself. And the whole process of selection, pre-screening people, having them on board, we take this very seriously. Mm-hmm. We want them to feel comfortable at SiteGround.
One of the things that I like is whenever I've had to contact customer support, which is not very often because
I don't need it.
No, things run very smoothly. But the support people have always been very friendly, very helpful, and so it's good to know. So they do go through you have a training program that they go through?
Very extensive training programs. Every new person, they usually have at least 2 weeks to 4 weeks training, like without even talking to clients, just theoretical training. Then they start talking to clients under the supervision of a mentor or a supervisor who is helping them pretty much in every reply they make to a client. And after between a month and 2 months, they could be independent and working on their own. And still they are newbies. We treat them like newbies. We organize a series of trainings afterwards, after this initial training. And this goes for about 3 to 6 months until we think they're qualified to actually treat the clients without any additional supervision or support from their managers.
Very good. Reneta Tsankova, the Chief Operating Officer of SiteGround, is my guest. Reneta, if somebody were to ask you what makes SiteGround superior to other web hosting companies, what would you tell them?
I would tell them it's about our drive, our philosophy, how we do things. We are always aiming at being better and better, doing it better than the others, and doing it for sustainability, for growth. Everything we develop, most of the things we develop in-house with the purpose of actually building smarter solutions and superior solutions than in terms of what our software does or our service does. But it's also our customer service. It's also the same philosophy that drives us for quality. We want our people to be better. We want our service to be better. So I think that's what makes us... It pays off in the end.
Sure. Now, earlier this year, we talked to Herschel Pendrav, your WordPress and SEO expert at SiteGround, and he talked to us about some technical accomplishments that you guys have had. I'm just wondering, from a strategic managerial viewpoint, what are you most proud of concerning SiteGround's accomplishments?
Well, there are many things. Maybe in the area of software, of server administration, I think we have lots of achievements there. It's about how we secure our servers, how we speed up and optimize the whole server monitoring and service recovery in case of incidents, how we actually protect from incidents, hedge for problems. These things we are really proud. These are really solid things that they are noticed by our clients. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the smooth experience that you're having.
Absolutely.
As part of it.
Yes. Reneta Tsankova, the Chief Operating Officer of SiteGround, has been my guest. Last question for you. I always like to find out what I can about what's coming in the future. You mentioned some of your expansion. Can you share with our audience anything else that might be in the future?
Yeah, obviously the one thing that we are really focused on is international expansion, Spain being the first country we're going to launch operations in, and some other European countries that we're interested in as well. We're also working on certain, we would like to improve the whole interaction of the client with our platform. So we will be reworking our user area in terms of making this experience better and easier for for the different user segments that we have. So this will be a big project, and will probably take 6 months, a year maybe, to actually finalize it and launch it.
We'll be looking forward to that. And I invite everybody for more information to go to SiteGround.com, or you can visit our website. I've written a lot about SiteGround and their great services. Reneta Tsankova, Chief Operating Officer of SiteGround, has been my guest. Reneta, thanks so much for spending some time with us.
Thank you for having me.
And continued success in the future.
Thank you.
And my thanks again to Reneta Tsankova. That's going to do it for this edition of the podcast. As always, for more information on any of the topics on the show today, please visit our website at webhostingcat.com. And until next time, this is Michael James wishing you all the best with your website endeavors. Thanks for listening, and take care.
You've been listening to the Web Hosting Cat podcast, sponsored by webhostingcat.com. The preceding program is copyrighted 2015 by TuxCat Media.